All we have to do is go on to edit mode by hitting tab, then clicking 2, which is going to give us the selection for edge selection mode. And then afterwards, we can select this piece over here, click GZ, move this downwards. And just like that, we create ourselves a very basic type of a slanted roof. And right away, you can see that it's a little bit too slanted, for example. I'd say, yeah, too slanted. I'm going to go ahead and just fix that up. I'm going to even go on to face selection mode, clicking 3, selecting the top, GZ, and just making sure that it's not too wide. And afterwards, yeah, let's go ahead and just scale this down. This is too high up in comparison to the roof that we have over here. So let's go ahead and just nicely scale this down like so. I think this is going to be much better. And at this point, we can start working with a little bit of better shapes. And to see those shapes, we're going to go ahead and go on to this upper right hand section onto the arrow. We're going to enable ourselves the cavity. Cavity will highlight any of the edges like that. It will give us a better understanding of those shapes that we're combining and just kind of highlight the overall setup. Because when we're texturing, we're going to add like edge wear and whatnot. So we're going to highlight any of the pieces, and essentially having this cavity on will help us to give us a nice preview of the overall composition. And yeah, let's go ahead and move on with the setup. If we look at the staircase over here, we can set it up with a nice basic type of a setup. And I would say that's exactly what we're going to do, just to not stress ourselves over it too much. I'm going to check how many stairs there is. So let's say 12 stairs. It's going to be a good number. Let's go ahead and sort that out. And if we look at it over here as well, even though this section over here is in a way, you can see that the staircase ends around, let's say closer. Where is it? There we go. Closer to the entrance basically of this section. So we can go ahead and just sort that out. Let's go ahead and grab ourselves in this case, we're just going to grab ourselves a simple cube. Origin point doesn't really matter for us because we're just going to work with a thin panel. So sometimes I prefer to duplicate it from already existing one just to get that origin point nicely set up. But in this case, it really doesn't matter. So for this particular case, we might consider how to set ourselves up with, for example, modifiers. Array mesh would be really good for giving us that nice type of a setup over here. But I would say that it doesn't really matter for this particular case. The reason being is that we really want to just get ourselves as keeping ourselves as simple as possible with the Greyboxing and just keeping the overall workflow nice and creative. So I'm going to click Ctrl+1 to go to the back view. It's just the opposite of the front view. And then afterwards, I'm going to go ahead and just click Shift-D, move this upwards, Shift-D, move this upwards. And I think something like that will be pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and check real quick if the gaps are okay. So for example, maybe they're not okay. I'm going to go ahead and just offset them out a little bit. Something like this. And we just need essentially just 4 steps. After which we can make a duplicate out of them. So now we have 8. And if we duplicate it again, we'll have 12 steps. Just like that. Now we can go ahead and just reposition our camera to make a nice box selection like so. If you're not able to make a box selection just like that, just make sure you are in select box mode over here. And then afterwards you can, click G to move it around. If you want to get the gizmo back, you can just click on the move tool over here, and that's going to give us this setup. And over here, I'm just going to move it to this point like so. And I think this is not good enough. The reason being is that this is going to be higher up. And another thing I made a mistake is, if we click Ctrl+1, is this is too close to the base. I'm going to move this upwards a little bit. It's still not enough. I'm going to click SZ. I'm not too worried about the thickness or anything at this point, just overall pattern. So something like this, I'm happy about. We can go ahead and keep this as is. And in regards to the structure over here. This is something for a bit of an extra, just to make sure it kind of flows nicely overall in the building. But I would say, again, we can just use primitive shapes. Go and click in cube. Actually, sorry, I'm going to delete that. Going to duplicate this piece just to get myself a nice origin point. Like so. I'm going to click 7. Going to click scale it down actually, like this. And what is it that we'd like to do? Well, we'd like to make sure this is not too thick. So let's go ahead and click SY, this, SZ, like this, something like this type of piece is going to be quite all right. Again, I'm not too worried about the overall pattern too much. Just interested in this nice type of a structure of a setup. And here is going to be also a beam, a support beam on the side. I'm going to make sure we have that. I'm actually just going to reuse this piece over here. SY, make it thicker, RY, and just scale it. And in regards to scaling, we need to scale it in, I think, Z axis, but not in the global Z axis. By default, the way the scaling works is going to be in regards to the world positioning. So if I click SZ, is going to scale it upwards, even if this is diagonal. So that's not going to give us the right option. We need to go and change this from global to local. You'll notice that the move, if we have this enabled, that the move has been changed. Now it's pointing towards the same part as an object. And we can click SZ and see that it's now even scaling it outwards to the same rotation of an object. So that's a pretty neat way of just kind of quickly dealing with this issue over here. Again, I'm not too worried about the overall setup too much. All I'm really looking for is going to be just an overall thickness, I'd say. So I think it needs to be a little bit thicker. So SY, just picking it up a little bit, like so. SZ, touching the other section. Maybe something like this. Or maybe I'm just going to lower it down a little bit. I'm just looking at mainly the positioning and rotation. So yeah, I was worried a little bit that this part of the back was a little bit too high up. That's why I moved it. That's the main reason for it. And I think that's going to be good enough. We can just duplicate this actually. I'm going to go ahead and go back to global transformation. Click Shift D, GZ, move this upwards just to get a nice piece of railing. And I am going to go back to local in this particular case, because I want to click SX and just squish it down a little bit. SY, maybe bringing this outwards. Maybe something like this. Nope, I'm going to keep it right above this other piece and just move this to the side just like that. Again, not too worried about anything other than just overall structure, which I think in this particular case is going to be quite all right. I'm worried about the pattern overall. Maybe this is not enough, but again, keeping it simple, keeping it fast pace and whatnot in regards to greyboxing is key here. And yeah, again, don't worry about it too much. In regards to the setup, all we need to do is just consider how the overall structure looks like. I'm going to now work on this other piece over here at the back. If we have a look at the back over, when we look at the back, it's not really easy to see. Maybe it's a little bit better from the side. We do have a structure above it. So this above structure is going to be this part over here. And if I were to highlight it like so, this part over here is mainly there to help us break out this empty wall. Otherwise, this entire area would have been too empty. At the base, we would have like some small props, you know, barrels and etc. At the upper section, we need to help us break up this flat wall. So that's exactly what we're going to do with this type of an extension. We're going to go ahead and get ourselves, instead of a cube, sorry, I'm going to duplicate this piece. going to click GY just to move it up to the side, Alt and S to bring back a nice little cube, and move it up to the side just like that. Now, let's look about how it's being supported. I'm not sure it's visible over here too much, but it does have these large beams going downwards. The reason being is that extension by itself would be a little bit too much for the weight supported. We would either need to get ourselves this kind of a structure support to make sure it's supported, or because we, in this case, want to have a sign over here, we're going to get the beam going downwards all the way. The sign could have been, for example, in front of that beam like this, you know, and the beam would have been behind it. But all in all, I think it's a little bit better, especially considering that there is a long structure right next to it. So it's just easier to consider this kind of a support, I would say, when we have it going downwards. Also, another thing is going to be that we are going to have a really nice type of support for the staircase as well. So that's going to help us break down this nice linear type of a staircase. I'm going to grab the supports from the back, going to click Shift D, GX, move it up to the side, just like that, GY, just like that, SZ, and something like this. I'm also going to make it quite a bit smaller actually in this particular case. Or actually, I want to know if this is not too much. So this is too much of a cube. I'm going to go ahead and, for example, check the upper section. It's more of a rectangular shape, just to keep up with the overall appearance of, well, rectangular pieces. We got to make sure it's being kept the same. And in regards to the just overall pattern of this piece, I'm going to click S and Y, just kind of squish it down, I think, like so. The question is if this is going to be now enough for the support. So I want ideally the support to be starting over here and then ending it maybe somewhere around here. I think that's quite enough. So we want to reposition this a little bit. And actually this entire support can, I think, yeah, they can actually be quite a bit smaller. So in this particular case, we can select both of them like so. And there is a nice little function to help us scale down. So if we click on transform pivot point, we can change it to be individual origins. This will mean that whenever we're scaling, we're going to scale it based on each individual points of an object. Because we're scaling, we want to scale two pieces at once. It's going to be quite helpful. We can click S and then Shift Z and then kind of make it a little bit thinner, but not too thin. Something like this, maybe just a little bit bigger. Just like so, that's better. I'm going to go back onto median point. This is the default I prefer, and actually going to go back to transform orientations global, because otherwise we might forget and that might mess us up in the future. And for this piece, I'm going to bring it up like this, maybe scale this down just a little bit. Something like this. I don't like scaling it down. I'd rather just move this a little bit more to the side. Something like this. That's going to be perfect, like so. This piece at the top needs to be a slanted roof. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to scale this down just to this point, make a duplicate out of the piece, and I am going to scale it down again, go to edit mode and put it like so. I think this is a little bit too much. I'm going to bring it upwards, select the piece at the top and something like that. Let's see. Yeah, it's nicely, oh, it's actually touching the upper section over here, and it's going to have a frame. So we need to not forget to set that up. I think that's going to be quite all right. We do have a nice support part on the side, like here. So we're going to be working on that, and it's actually, yeah, this should be closer to the top, I would say. Or actually, You know what? We're going to continue on with this in the next lesson. We can tweak small parts, reposition a little bit, change up the, the overall scales of individual pieces. But all in all, I think it's shaping up to be pretty nice. So that's going to be it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you in a bit.